Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We're back again with another culture content. Follow me, Jay Doran underscore the Culture Man on Instagram. Today, I want to talk about navigating conflicts part two in the workplace. So let's say, our people are not getting along, or you're not getting along with your peers in the workplace. Now, there's two sides of this coin. One would be personal responsibility. What, how am I showing up? Um, am I doing my job at the highest level possible? How could I actually know that without feedback of my peers, without feedback of my bosses, without the feedback of the results of my labor? Now, depending on my degree of, depending on, now that this is where the conversation goes to the organization, because based on the organization's rituals and leadership and how communication flows to the organization, that could actually impact the average person's ability to recognize whether it's them or the organization. It could all be absolutely backwards. And that's where trust comes in to an organization. In the absence of trust, respect breaks down. In the absence of mutual respect of those that work together as a team in the organization, it's harder to recognize what reality is, what the expectations are, what what I'm supposed to carry versus the person next to me, versus the person below me, versus the person above me in the pecking order. And that's so the key in the absence of trust, it's extremely hard to know what is true, to know what is real. But let's say, so there's two sides of this coin though. It's, am I all in and engaged, or am I disengaged and think I'm engaged, or am I disengaged because I've chosen to be disengaged as a consequence of the organization not doing its part? Which one is it? So, but I want to direct the conversation to the other side of the coin for this part, which is the role of the leadership or those with authority that behaviors and certain behaviors and habits and responsibilities that those with authority, that those responsibilities actually fall on them. So resolving conflicts comes from the leader or is influenced by the leader. If people are not getting along, that represents a lack of responsibility on the leader's standpoint. What exactly, and as well as the organization, what exactly is missing in that equation that is leading people to not get along and not be able to communicate with mutual respect? So here are some factors though that are outside of just the leader. It could be personality. So going back to coin number one, is it actually you when you think it's everybody else? Your results will actually speak volumes. Other people's feedback of you will speak volumes. That's where self-awareness comes in. The engagement or disengagement of those superior to you will speak volumes. But it's a combination of all those three. So like, let's say that personality in a group is leading to conflicts that seem irreconcilable. Well, somewhere those with authority that are perceived as leaders can take responsibility or take stock would be leaders place the right people in the right seat. So that's part of and now, and also this personality thing can easily be a symptom of other problems that are unseen. So it's not just placing the right people could be in the right seat, but something else could be out of whack that's leading us to think the wrong people are in a seat. It's not the right person in that seat. It could actually be something else. And so, but here's another one. This could be an external, so tougher times. Let's say we're as an organization, we're going through harder times because the macro does impact the micro. The macro has influence on the micro in relationship to group cohesion, to everything that we just talked about. Is there trust? Is there mutual respect? Uh, because if there isn't, how are we going to figure out how to adapt to the environment? How are we going to reorient ourselves and look to the future and come up with a new plan? How are we going to hold, um, yeah, what does that even mean? Hold each other accountable. How are we going to tell each other the truth in relationship to how things change in respect to our plans, our aims, our desires? How are we going to do that if we don't trust one another? If there isn't so the lead so here's the there could be external, right? There's an inevitability that things on the macro are going to make times tougher and we have to respond to them because it's a moving target if we're building a company. So where leadership comes in, the communication, the showing of values, the tougher calls when necessary. In the tougher times, we have to communicate. An organization goes through an event. It's up to those positions of authority to explain to the people what's going on, why, and how are we moving forward. And the more trust there is in the organization, people will speak freely what's on their mind and what they think is best on the organization's behalf. People will, the less trust the average person has within an organization, the less likely they're going to speak their mind freely in respect to the organization's benefit because they're in a state of fight or flight and fearing of the consequence of what could happen to them. Those with positions of authority, influence, and power, we would call them leaders. They actually have to lead in order for there to be less fear in respect to that authority, influence, and power. Because there are consequences for people to say what they think, despite, you know, if their intentions. There can be consequences. Everyone has to be working for the organization's benefit, and put aside their selfish desires or their self-serving natures to actually add value to the organization. And that is a consequence of trust in the organization, is a consequence of mutual respect, which is a consequence of how the actual authorities navigate interpersonal relationships and create that environment of trust and mutual respect. So, you know, each one of these, let's say, factors that could break down trust, that could lead to conflict, because conflict occurring, deconstructive conflict occurring in a group is going to it can be it's going to break down from it could be personality, it could be external events. These are inevitabilities. It could be the third one here is the absence of rituals. And the fourth one is this could be you know, a general absence of trust. But the general absence of trust actually impacts all of the other three, which is personality, tougher times, external events, and the absence of rituals. But if on the other side of each one of these, for example, there's could be an absence of rituals. The rituals must occur. Now, whose responsibility is to make sure the rituals occur? Those would be that would be the people in positions of authority, influence, and power, the leaders. And and so there really isn't there there's a million excuses for why it doesn't happen. But the consequences don't care about the excuses. The consequences are just going to reflect the results of behavior that works or behavior that doesn't work on respect of the leadership that influences the behavior of the people that works or doesn't work. Number four, this could be the absence of trust, right? So that absence of trust. So the leader's job is actually to create trust. If you have a group of 10 people and the person with the authority and the highest status, their part of their job is actually to make it to create trust. And those in positions of authority that actually have regressed and are insecure, they're not secure in their position, will, without even realizing it, undermine the trust of their team. They will not um, speak directly to their team. They will not permit dialogue to occur without it being taken personally. They will not uh, lift up and recognize those that are demonstrating the highest competence and the most buy-in of the organization. That will actually come across to those individuals in positions of authority and influence and power as potentially threatening to them. And what that actually means is that the person with authority is not they're not trusting themselves. They're not, and now the question is why? Well, that can happen naturally uh, for a couple reasons. And I pointed at, they're disengaged. It could be coming from ignorance. It could be coming from entitlement, paranoia, burnout. Um, and these things naturally occur or have the capacity to actually occur as an organization actually grows. And people that start organizations hit their lids in leadership because think about it. It's that Peter principle. Uh, we get promoted to our, is it highest level of incompetence? Because, yeah, I think that we're promoted to the next level, but we've never been in that level before. So we have to actually learn what to do. And it takes courage to learn what to do when you don't know what to do. But what if you're in a state of cowardice? That's going to lead someone to be reactive and not be vulnerable because it's going to take vulnerability to be courageous and transparency to actually learn by unlearning. And if someone's stuck in fear and in that highest position, there's a degree of entitlement because it can always be other people's fault and not the person at the top or not the leader in the group by authority. It can be everyone but that person. And that can lead to uh, as things get worse and they digress and trust breaks down more and more and more, it's like catching a falling knife. How do you break that pattern? Burnout, people burn out. Their anxiety levels go up. It beats them totally to the ground. And now, everyone is just unclear of what's next and how to go about things and who's on who. We're not all together moving forward. We're all moving, forward and backward and left and right in different directions because there's an absence of leadership. There's an absence of vision. There's an absence of clarity. There's an absence of trust. There's an absence of love. There's an absence of belonging. And, what are some of the question becomes, where could this come from? Well, incompetence, a lack of effort, a lack of purpose. If someone doesn't know what to do, they don't even know enough of what to do that they don't know that they don't know what to do. That's a problem. That's where help comes in. That's where third parties come in. That's where advisors and mentors and coaches and consultants really earn their keep is when an organization kind of loses its identity. It loses sight of what it is and where it's going and why it exists. And management's kind of caught in this downward cycle. And so, a degree of incompetence and a degree of entitlement could lead to lack of effort. And that has association with lack of purpose, which has an association with lack of counsel. And arguably, that has an association with a lack of pain. Especially small companies benefit from pain. They benefit from the accountability of the market. They benefit from things not working out. But what about when things are working out? Where does the ability to get things done come from when things aren't working out? It comes from personal responsibility. It comes from education. It comes from awareness. It comes from strong character. It comes from character. It comes from, and that's what manifests culture. It comes from culture and it manifests culture. They're like they respond to one another. It's why culture matters. The culture matters because the culture is the driving and manifesting spirit of the people that come together to work towards and to work towards something beyond their current state, beyond the current state of affairs, beyond the current balance sheet, beyond the current um, it's like 10 people come together and they're all, it's not 10 people come together and they're all at a certain degree of competence and education and lived experience. But when they come together and there's trust and there's a degree of awareness and understanding and belief in going straight, they're walking together. They become the tip of the spear for the future gains, the future growth, the future profits, the future meaning, the future value. They become They create value. They convert energy, as our buddy Mike Calhoun would say on the Culture Matters podcast. They convert energy. They convert. They create the future. So, the reason I bring all this up is like um, conflict, conflicting views, opinions, beliefs are inevitable in period. Within the capacity of an organization, they're inevitable as an organization figures out what's next, where are we going, why are we going, how do we get there. When when it's deconstructing and it's regressing to the point where people are just against each other and they're not, it reflects an absence of engagement on a deep level of leadership. It reflects an absence of modeling of values. It reflects an absence of living out the core values of the company. It reflects an absence of sacrifice, of commitment, of effort, of communication, of purpose, of enthusiasm, of the spirit of the leadership. And that's why you see throughout business constantly organizations selling and getting acquired, reactively and en masse is like the people at the helm have lost the spirit. They're not, for whatever reason, acting out the originating spirit and consciousness that started the organization in the first place. And it creates ripple effects throughout the organization's culture, which undermines the identity of each individual on a personal level that has an association with work and labor and all the values as individuals that are challenged when we work together in the workplace for a bigger purpose, for a great, even if it's not like super explicit, it's implicit in the behaviors of the leadership. Everybody is moving, and their job is more than just the job. It's has meaning and purpose, and like because the behaviors are happening. What the larger organization gets, the more important the implicit has to become explicit. The word has to transcend just actions and go into words and a story and language and speaking and rituals and gatherings and all these things. But if you do all the rituals and the gatherings and all of these things and the stories and all that, but the actual sacrifice, the labor, the work is not there, then the culture becomes inverted and like a black hole of like a black hole and sucks everybody inside of it, and people can't get out and they can't see straight, and it's not it's almost inevitable at that point that people are going to have a difficulty having conversations around the truth because they don't trust one another. And if everyone doesn't trust one another, that's a real sign that the leadership has failed. If a couple people don't, it could be them for whatever they're relating to the world in a way where it's representative of their character. And now it goes back to management. Are we keeping these people? Are we replacing these people? And how are we having those conversations? And what resources do we have to rehabilitate them or not? But a disengaged management's not going to do any of that. They're just going to keep reacting to their own disengagement like a dog chasing its tail. And that's going to, so anyway, like in short, because if I go to the beginning of this, there's two sides of the coin, right? I'm an individual. The surveys about me from my peers will give one level of awareness of my engagement of am I really as good as I think I am or as bought in as I think I am. The results will tell me, but also the relationship with my superior will tell me. Are they telling me? If the surveys are telling me I'm not competent and the results are telling me I'm not competent and the boss is telling me I am competent, the boss may be lying to themselves and therefore me. The boss is incompetent. If the boss is telling me I'm incompetent, the um, surveys are telling me I'm incompetent, but the results of my labor are telling everybody I'm competent, then the institution is likely corrupt. You can see where I'm going with this. It's a personal responsibility piece of the conversation, but there's also the institutional piece of the conversation. And we need to address both because institutions do become corrupt because for various reasons. And to go back in the defense of those with authority, influence, and power, they may just literally not know what the hell they're doing anymore because they created a business way beyond their education, experience, awareness, and they may be stuck in purgatory where they don't know what's next for themselves. They don't know have a why. They don't know there isn't something that's exciting them. They haven't, the hero's journey uncover met their guide yet, and they're just kind of in purgatory, reacting to all of the problems that are coming as a consequence of their lack of personal responsibility, which is creating this overemphasis on accountability in an organization when that's an oxymoron because accountability is a symptom of responsibility. It's not, meaning it comes as a consequence of personal responsibility. People naturally tell the truth, and they don't lie, and they quit, right? Or so quitting is like a representation of accountability because somebody that's super competent that leaves a country is saying, hey, this country is not listening. This country is not serving. But they were like really competent. They were amazing. We don't want to lose the good people. The person that's really good, that's showing up and totally engaged, they're exemplifying their values. That tells the organization we're doing something right. Accountability is given in speech or taken in action. People are saying what they think, and the repercussions aren't against them. It's against the organization to reevaluate itself because the organization doesn't even exist. It's just an idea, and I mean, it exists in the sense of a legal documents, and it's an idea, but like it exists way too much in a meaningful sense in a negative way when people are just when they don't trust one another and there isn't mutual respect, and it's just no one can communicate and talk and really work through the problems. So now, so accountability, it's like the, the results will show us accountability. Our people's voices will show us accountability. Our conscience will show us accountability. Responsibility is an individual calling. Responsibility is showing the value. It's showing it in actions. It's not spoken. It's a feedback. It has a relationship with the feedback loop of accountability, which is other people's thoughts, words, emotions, feelings, perceptions, and what they're doing with their actions. That if I'm bringing this to a close, like if, if there's a team, people are navigating workplace conflicts is more than just you listening to this and thinking, let me take as much responsibility to my as I can. Although, arguably that would be better for your life. It also is tied into external factors in the org that influence an organization. It's tied into the education of the management and like, do they know what to do and how to influence the people and inspire the people and level, act out the next strategy. And it's tied to the true buy-in of the leaders of the organization. Those that are there are consequences when they don't act like leaders, but they have the title, they have the position. If like they have to work really hard, they have to work smart, and they have to include people. And people that don't are not in a season of working hard and working smart are, which is what I'm saying, are less likely to include people. They're more likely to alienate, and they're more likely to undermine. And, you know, they get what's coming to them. The marketplace holds everybody accountable. So, yeah, part two of this navigating workplace conflicts, I just want to leave it with like, I would listen to this a couple times because I'm all over the place, but it's kind of one of those all over the place, more abstract thoughts that just, if you could explore with me, we're talking about a couple different pieces here. Each person in that room of 10 people's personal responsibility to themselves, their life's vision, their families, the people that are important to them, their job description, how well they're showing up, and also the factors that influence them and their team and their bosses and their bosses' bosses, and the natural diminishing returns of success. As an organization grows, it creates entitlement and ignorance and burnout, and that can break down trust in an organization. And so it's no wonder there's a proliferation of investment in the private world, all these millions of businesses that are not on the public stock exchange, because the world is changing and people naturally, outgrow or their businesses naturally outgrow them. And unless they grow beyond the outgrowth, then the culture becomes terrible. Follow me, Jay Doran underscore the Culture Man on Instagram. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time.